Hi everyone, I hope I'm audible and visible to all of you. If you can see and hear me, just give me a quick yes in the comments. Hi everyone, welcome to the Whisky Investment Masterclass. This is the second masterclass that we're doing on the topic. And the basic objective here is to help you all to understand how the concept of whiskey investing actually works. Like, why do we even consider whiskey as an investment? And trying to understand why is it that whiskey is called liquid gold? Why do we say that whiskey in casks is more valuable than whiskey in a bottle? Then we are also going to look at the whiskey fractions marketplace and how that works. We look at the problems in the traditional world of whiskey investing, how fractions work, what are the factors that affect the value of a whiskey, and then of course I'll show you how the whole platform also functions, and then I'll tell you how you can take the exam and get a certificate. So if you would like to get a certificate for the masterclass, there's a short exam. It's 25 questions, objective. You get about 10 minutes to finish them. Crack 70% score and above, and you get a certificate online. And as always, if there are any questions, just keep putting them in the chat and I'll keep answering them. Shinam, there are some platforms from which the chat may not show up to me. So you may also need to keep, entering those chats here. If there are no questions for me to begin, let me just quickly start off. So for that, give me a second. So the first thing that I want to discuss with you is that why do we say that it is whiskey in a cask or a barrel which is more valuable than whiskey which is in a bottle? The reason is that unlike wine, whiskey only matures in a cask. So as long as it is in that wooden barrel, the age of the whiskey is going up. And as you know that the older the whiskey is, usually the more valuable it becomes. So let's take a simple example. So once you bottle a 3-year-old whiskey and you put it into the bottle, it will remain three forever. Even 10 years later, it will be considered a 3-year-old whiskey, not 13 years old, because it's in the bottle. On the other hand, if you keep it in the barrel for 10 years, it's automatically considered a 10-year-old whiskey. So that's a very important concept for us to remember. Once we take the whiskey out of the barrel, the aging stops. No matter how many years you keep the bottle, it is not going to age and its value is not going to appreciate based on the age. So, a lot of people who do collect whiskey bottles and keep, this is something very important for you to remember. Now, when we talk about whiskey, usually the kind of returns that we come across is about 4x over 10 years, and I'll go deeper into that very soon. But before that, I want to go into the concept of why do we call whiskey as liquid gold. So, when we look at whiskey, it has firstly a rising demand and a limited supply. Let me explain to you why that happens. Of course, the demand is going up because more and more people are now starting to drink whiskey. So, and in fact, if you look at it, India, Japan, South Korea, these are now emerging as the biggest hubs for consumption of whiskey, especially that which comes from Scotland, which we call as the Scotch whiskey. Now, why is the supply limited? Let's say today you say that I want 18-year-old Scotch. You can't make it now. It is 18 years today if 18 years ago it was put into the barrel. So there is a limited supply of how much whiskey was kept into the barrel 18 years ago. And that is why we find that whiskey always has a very limited supply. Once you put it in the cask today, again you have to wait for those many years for it to become valuable. So that is why there is always a very limited supply of whiskey. And as more and more people want to have older whiskies, naturally the demand is more, supply less. That's why the value keeps going up. Then whiskey constantly appreciates over time. So just like you look at gold, you go back 100 years and you look at the prices, they're always rising in the long run. Similarly, whiskey, as it gets older, gets more value over time. Another advantage is that it is a tangible asset. So if you take an example of something like a typical cryptocurrency, it does not really have anything tangible. If tomorrow that technology fails, that entire project could become zero because there is nothing tangible behind it. But when we talk about whiskey, it's physically there. There is this wooden barrel, there is this liquid inside. You can always go to Scotland and bottle your own whiskey if you want. So there is a tangible asset behind it. Another big advantage for it is that it is a diversification method. So suppose you've already got your basic investments in mutual funds and stock market and fixed deposits and whatever else you like. A lot of people then go into alternative asset classes like whiskey, and they invest in that to kind of diversify their portfolio. There are a lot of tax benefits in the sense that whiskey in the cask is kept in a UK government bonded warehouse. So, usually, say in Scotland, and there it can keep maturing for years without any tax being put. The tax comes when you actually bottle it, not before that. Another thing is that each cask actually over time becomes unique. So while initially when we put the liquid into it, it is not even called whiskey. It's called new make spirit. And then after 3 years, it can be called as whiskey. That's the law in UK. 3 years minimum. After that, you will realize that even though there are multiple barrels next to each other from the same new make spirit, over time the flavors and all flavor profile can actually change. So each cask can also become quite unique. And then, of course, it's becoming a cultural and a status symbol. So if you look around and you start to see as people become richer or as they make more money, the first thing that they want to kind of start spending on is whiskey. So, a lot of people start putting their bars at home and then they start buying really fancy stuff. So, yes, whiskey is becoming a very big status symbol. And finally, it has a very long shelf life. I mean, the older it gets, the more expensive it becomes. So, it can be stored for a very long period of time. Let me take some questions. So, benefits of the certificate, well, I'll be very honest, is just for you. If you want to take a test and test your knowledge, that's what it's for. There's no real other benefit than that. I work for McAllen representing as ABA from Mumbai. Oh, that's very nice, Ashish. So I'm really happy that you're part of this, and do get in touch with me after the session. If there are any more questions, keep putting them in. Okay. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about is that how did I really get into this? So I'll be very honest with you. I don't drink alcohol. I never have in my life, right? So I'm what you call as a teetotaler, or I don't like tea also. I drink coffee only. But as an investment, I find it very exciting. So a lot of my friends were actually investing in whiskey. So some would buy bottles, some would buy the cask. So when I heard about this the first time, I was quite intrigued. How does this work? Because I initially always thought that alcohol is an expense. You spend money and you consume it, it's over. But then I realized from them that over a period of time, the value can really go up. So then I tried to find out what are the problems that they face. So the biggest problem that I realized was that you had to buy an entire cask. Now that could become really expensive. So it could go into crores of rupees also, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending upon which cask you're talking about. So that was problem number one. That huge amount of investment that you need to put in yourself. Another problem that I felt a lot of people were having was the transparency concern. Like they were not able to easily figure out whether the cask they are buying is it genuine, and what are the documents that you should get with it. Then there was a liquidity problem that I have a cask, but selling it may not be very easy. In fact, even buying is not very easy. You may not always find people ready to sell that particular cask that you want or ready to buy it from you when you want to exit. People also wanted to know that what is the provenance and authenticity of the cars. Another very big issue was the storage and insurance. So, I mean, how do you make sure it is stored properly? How do you make sure the insurance is there so that if something goes wrong with the cask, your investment is protected? And then, if you have a limited amount of money, you don't want to invest it entirely in one cask. You want to spread it over multiple casks. And that is the reason that I decided to get into this tokenization of the cask, where what we do is there are two ways in which this whole system operates. So one is we as a company, so that's HYFI Fractions Corporation, which is a Wyoming US based company that buys out the cask and holds it for you and then tokenizes it. So all the ownership documents are in the name of that company. Second, if you are already holding your own cask, so you may be a collector, you may be a distillery, you may be a broker, but if you already hold your own cask, you can also then tokenize them on our platform. And I'm going to go deeper into it and explain how that works. Let me take a question here. Uh, Other than, okay, so does only whiskey appreciate over time or other liquor also? That's a very good question. So one definitely I can tell you is that wine appreciates a lot over time. Now, other than that, a lot of people have also now started going into the luxury rum. Then there is of course gin, which is also gaining a lot of this thing. But I would say the top two are still considered whiskey and wine. There may be other kinds of alcohol also, but I'm not really 100% sure about those. But these are two definitely which are there. Interesting case for blockchain. Thanks a lot. Is it similar to real estate tokenization? Samar, that's an interesting question. So, in one way, we can say that whenever we tokenize a real world assets, it's kind of the same thing, whether you do real estate or you do whiskey. But there are some basic differences that when it comes to real estate, there are lots of legal complications that come into the picture. I mean, who owns the property and all. Whereas when it comes to things like whiskey, those problems are not so severe. It's much easier to do that. So that would be the difference. Now, just give me a second. Okay. Now let me show you how the platform works. So let me just share my screen. So the first thing that you would need to do naturally is to register for free on the platform. So I'm going to be sharing the URL in the chat here. It's hyfiblockchain.com. So if you just go there and you will see at the bottom there's a register and login link. Just click on the register and that's where you will be able to see. Give me a second. Right. Okay, so you will be able to see a simple looking screen like this which says register for a new account. All that you need to do is enter your name and your email address. Press the button. You will get an email which gives you your password and then simply go to the login page and log in. There's no KYC required at this stage. KYC is only required if you are going to be buying and selling with cryptocurrencies. So we accept all kinds of payments. So you can do a bank transfer, you can do a credit card payment through Stripe, or you can do crypto payments. So KYC is required only if you're going to be doing crypto payments. Now, once you log in, you are going to see a screen like this. Can you just give me a quick yes if you can see my screen? And it should say Whisky Fractions Marketplace, and there should be a graph below it. So just give me a quick yes if that's what you guys can see, and then I'll continue. I'm waiting for a quick, yeah, awesome. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice, so let me just zoom in a little bit. So you're going to see a graph which maps the 10-year growth of luxury investments. So this is as of 2022 and it is in percentage. And the source is the Knight Frank Luxury Index. So when we look at that, we can see that over the last 10 years, whiskey has appreciated by almost 4 times or 4x. It's 373%. Against that, cars have gone up by about 185%, wine by 162, watches by 147%, art is 91%, handbags 74, coins 59, and jewelry 44. So these are the various luxury assets that are regularly mapped by the Knight Frank report. And as you can see in the past, whiskey has shown the maximum amount of growth. Of course, you must always remember that past performance is not an indication of future performance, that there are risk factors associated, which all of you need to always remember. Now, as you scroll down, you will see that on this side here, you will always be able to see the latest whiskey investment related news. And this side, you will be able to see the listed casks. So our platform is fairly new. So as of right now, we have only one cask which is listed. Soon more will come in. You'll be able to see all of them here. You will also see an option here to list your own cask. So like I said, if you are a distillery or you're a collector or you're a broker, what you could do in that situation is we could help tokenize your cask so that every time a transaction happens for the tokens, you also get a commission in that. And of course, whatever money comes, it goes straight to you because it is your cask. So if you just click on this, you will be able to read all the details, get in touch with us, and we can help you tokenize your cask. Below this, there are some resources. You can click on them and you can learn more about it. So this is the first page, simple one. Now, if we click on this first link, which says Speyside Distillery 32982, that's the number of our first cask, then a page like this would open up. So maybe you guys can, yeah, you should be able to see a page where right on top it says $1. Let me know if that's visible to all of you. Okay, I'm presuming the yes here is for that one. Now, when we look at this page, so this I'm going to take a little more time explaining to you because this is the most important page for you. So here right on top, it will show you if you have already bought fractions. Of course, first time you log in, it will show zero. But in my case, I've already bought some fractions. So I bought 600, so it shows me here. I've got 300 odd dollars lying in my account. That also shows up. It shows 300.42. And then it shows HYFI tokens. You can ignore that for now. Here on this side, let me zoom in a bit, you will be able to see some core statistics. So it will show you the OLA, ABV, bulk liters, fractions, estimated bottles, and the currency you're using. So I'm going to explain these OLA, ABV, and other terms. But what's important here for you to remember is the same number which is important is here also, which is called fractions. What this means is what is the total number of fractions into which that one single whiskey cask has been broken down. So every time that you are investing in a cask, you are investing in one specific cask. So the cask number one, as you can see right on top, says cask number one, which is tokenized by us. It is divided into 3060 fractions. It starts with $1 each. That means the total value of the cask is $3060, and it is estimated that 282 bottles can be made out of it. And the average estimated cost of the bottle, which basically means dividing this total value by 282, is about $10. Over time, it is expected that this $1 will go up. Automatically, the cask value goes up. The number of fractions remains fixed. Obviously, estimated bottles could change and the price could change over the future. Every time a transaction happens, you can see all the transactions on this right side. And I'll show you another link also where all this is available to you in great detail. Now, like I said, it's a new platform. Currently, the price of this is still at $1. So you're seeing a flat graph. Over time, this graph is expected to move upwards. Then as we scroll down, we can see the cask metrics. Now, this is a very interesting concept, and I want you all to understand how that works. When we look at a cask, there are three critical metrics. The first is what we call as the OLA, which is the original liters of alcohol. Don't worry if you're finding some of these terms complicated. I'm going to share the link to the playbook that I've written, which will explain all this in great detail also. Now, what OLA means is original liters of alcohol. That is the original amount of pure alcohol when the cask is first filled. So here you can see in the gauge, it is reflecting right now it is 125.7. From time to time, this will be updated, these gauges. Second is the ABV percentage, which is the alcohol by volume. That is the standard measure of strength of the alcohol. It changes throughout the lifetime of the cask. Third is what we call as bulk liters. That's calculated by dividing this OLA by the ABV, and that amount is shown here. As we scroll down more, we see something called the cask details. So very briefly, this cask belongs to or is created by the Speyside distillers, and they won 3 gold awards at the Spirits Business Global Scotch Whisky Masters 2023. And they were also awarded the best single cask single malt at the world in 2021. Then you will see something called download cask report. Now let me show you what that looks like. Now all of you should be able to see on your screen a PDF which would say whiskey cask report. I'll wait for a few seconds. I'm sure all of you can see it by now. Give me a quick yes. Okay. So this is now going to describe a little bit more about this cask. So it's going to talk about the distillery. It is going to talk about the awards that they have won, and then you can just click here and see more details on that. Then there is more information about why we consider that this cask is likely to do well. So this particular distillery is moving to a new site. It's going to be a bigger distillery there. But once it moves, then this particular name under which they are making will not be allowed anymore. So those casks will become limited edition, and we expect the value to go up even more. Then you can click here and see their website. Scrolling down further, you will be able to see all the important metrics about that particular cask. So for every cask that we tokenize, this kind of a document is prepared, which is called the cask details report. And that would help you to make a decision about whether this cask is good or not for your needs. Any questions? Just put them in the comments below. Okay, let me continue. Okay. Now, as we scroll down further, sorry, yeah, as we scroll down further, we will be able to see the cask identifier. So if you were to go looking for the cask in the warehouse, what would it be called? So it would be called Speyside Distillery, cask number 32982. Then what kind of a cask is it? Now this is a very interesting concept in whiskey. So what happens is, when we put whiskey into the cask, we don't take brand new cask. We take casks which have already been used in the past for bourbon. So a lot of them usually come from the US. These are oak wood casks. Now the first time that Scotch whiskey is put into this bourbon cask, we call it a first fill barrel. And future, once this whiskey is taken out, next time we put whiskey into it, we call it a refilled kind of a cask. So this is a first fill. Usually the flavors are stronger. Then there is a description of the cask, that it's Speyside New Make Spirit. I told you for 3 years we don't call it whiskey, we call it New Make Spirit. Distilled at this particular distillery in 2022. Cask number is 32892. Sorry, 32982. Securely located at Colburn in Scotland. So all these casks have to be kept in UK government bonded warehouses, and those are located in Scotland. This one is in a place called Colburn. Now, under what kind of a license is it held? So these are the details of that. So it is under the UK government bond license of a company called Cask Trade Limited, and this is their certification number. Then we come across a concept of AYS, or age of the youngest spirit. So like I told you in the beginning, whiskey ages only when it is in the barrel and not when it is in the bottle. Now, suppose in a particular barrel, we add multiple whiskies, and that's always done. So multiple of them are put together. Now, suppose one of them is 3 years old and one of them is 20 years old. What will be the size of the overall whiskey or the age? It will not be considered 20, it will be considered 3. It is always the age of the youngest spirit which is calculated as the age of the overall thing. Otherwise, what would happen is, some people could take a lot of new whiskey, add a little bit of old one, and claim that the whole thing is old. To prevent that, we only consider the youngest spirit in that. I hope that part is clear. If you're confused, you can always put in your questions. Then we have the OLA, which I spoke to you about, the ABV, the bulk liters, all those metrics are mentioned here, the estimated bottles. Now this is divided into 3060 fractions. On what date it was listed on the platform and when did trading begin. Now, as you go further to the purchase details, you will see there are 3 buttons here. So whenever you are buying a whiskey cask, even if you're doing it on your own, just remember there are 3 documents you always need to have. The first one is the certificate of ownership. The second is the invoice, and the third is the transfer of title. Let me quickly show you what that looks like. So right now on the screen, you should be able to see something called a certificate of ownership. Give me a quick no if you're not able to see it. Otherwise, I'm going to presume all of you can see that very clearly. Okay. So this is the first one that you should be able to see. So a certificate of ownership which contains all these kinds of details. And like I told you, all these, when we tokenize, they are held by HYFI Fractions Corporation. And then the date of sale, date of receipt, all that is mentioned here. So this is the first certificate. I will show you the second one, which is the invoice. So obviously when we purchase this, we paid the money. Now, of course, this would be in pounds, but because this is Scotch whiskey, so it's in pounds. So this is the invoice which we received after we paid the money. So that is available for you. And the third thing that you will be able to see is called the transfer of title, where the title of this particular cask is transferred again to HYFI Fractions. So these are the 3 documents that you should have. Now, let's say you want to buy casks on your own without using our platform. Make sure then these 3 documents are in your name. So you should have this uh, certificate of ownership, you should have your transfer of title, and of course you should have your invoice. All these 3 should be available to you in your name. Are there any questions? Or if it's all clear, can you just guys give me an all clear so I can continue? Keshav or Shinam, can you just quickly type in an all clear so I know everything's clearly audible and visible and I can continue? Awesome. Let me continue. So this part I hope is clear to all of you. Give me a second. Okay. Now I'm back to the tab. I'm going to close those documents. So, right. Now these three buttons would give you those three documents, and then we give you a lot more information about who we've purchased the cask from. So this one has been purchased from Cask Trade Limited, a company registered in England and Wales. This is their company registration number, their registered office, their VAT registration number, their WOWGR, the warehouses number, alcohol wholesale registration scheme number, EORI, which is called Economic Operator Registration and Identification Number, their duty representative, date of sale, date of receipt. All that's available to you. The purchase price, how much we bought it at, converting into dollars. The tokenization fee that we add. So see, we are taking care of the insurance, storage, everything else also. So we put in our tokenization fee. That's what we get for doing this business. This is the name of our company which owns it. The storage is paid for the first 5 years from the AYS date, same for insurance, and you can download the certificates from here. So this page gives you a complete overview of the particular whiskey that you cask that you are going to invest in. Now, obviously, once you want to buy a fraction of it, you will need to click on this add USD, and it will give you details about bank transfers, Stripe credit cards, as well as the crypto based payment. So once you send the money within an hour or so, it will get credited to your account, and then you can start buying. So you need to deposit US dollars into your Whisky Fraction Marketplace account, and then you can start the buying process. If there are any questions, just put them there. Okay, so now here you see a button called buy and a button called sell. So obviously when you're first in, you're not selling anything, you click on the buy. Now, when you click on the buy, you're going to go into this page, which is going to tell you that as of right now, the total fractions for that cask 3060, how many you have. So if you're new to the platform, it would say 0. In my case, I've already bought 600, and each is about $1. So my total value is 600. And my share, this means when I look at the entire cask, what is the percentage owned by me? So because I own 600 upon 3000, it's about 20%, 19.61. Now it shows me my balance here, US dollar balance, and it shows me that as of right now, there are three fraction sets available. So somebody has put up 200 for selling at $1, somebody else has put up 200, and somebody has put 260 for $1. So I can now choose which of these three I want to buy. It's possible that sometimes you will come and it will say that there is nothing available for sale. So then you have to just check back later. Whenever somebody puts fractions up for sale, that's the only time that you can buy it. So now let's say I want to buy the first one. So I would click on buy now. Now here it shows me that, okay, this is what you're trying to do. So it's telling you that you are trying to buy from this cask. You want to buy 200 fractions at $1 each, and the total is $200. And then I can click buy now to complete the transaction. Now there's another interesting concept here where you can become an advisor. So, just like you have investment advisors who advise you about, say, investing in, for example, mutual funds. Now, here also, if you want to be a whiskey advisor and you are advising your clients, then what you can do is you can select good orders for them which you feel they should buy. And then you can click here and share this particular link with them using WhatsApp, or click on this one using email. Then your client logs in, they can put money into their account and they can buy it. Now, every time that they buy it, you get a commission, and I'm going to show you where that is going to be visible to you. So this feature we've introduced very recently, and this would enable any kind of whiskey investors or other kinds of investment advisors to onboard their clients and get paid every time there is a transaction. So over a period of time, let's say you onboard 100 clients and each of them is doing 10 transactions a day. On each transaction, you will be getting your share. Are there any questions on that? Please feel free to put them here. I hope I'm not going too fast. But anyway, this is going to be recorded, so you can always go through the recording also later. So I don't see any other questions as of right now. So I hope this part is clear. Now, if I was actually making the transaction, I would click buy now and instantly it would take me and show me my transactions. But right now I'm not buying it. I just wanted to show it to you. Now let's quickly have a look at what our platform looks like. So when we go on the left and we hover over these four buttons which are there, the first one, it says me. Now you can click on my info and you can update your various information like your address and WhatsApp number or whatever, totally your call. When you click on my assets, it will show you all the different assets that you actually own on the platform. So your US dollars, your whiskey fractions, everything will show. If you click on change password, you will be able to reset your password and you can log out from it. The second button opens up your whiskey fractions options. The first is the marketplace. So let me click on it. When you click on that, it goes to this page which we started with. It will show you all the casks as we start to list more and more. Clicking on this will help you to list your own cask. The second option we see is buy or sell fractions. Let me click on that. So right now there is one cask available. So you can see one box here. As more casks come for listing, you will see them below each other. So what this does is it tells you the name of the number of the cask, the fact that it's first fill, the AYS date, the age of the youngest spirits, a little overview. Then it says that the current value of the fractions of that cask is $1. There are totally so many, you own so many. So from this page, you can directly click buy, or in my case, like I already have some, I can directly click on sell. And then of course we have the details page, which takes you back to details of the cask. So this becomes very easy for you to buy or sell from in one click. Then we can see four options here. The first one is the playbook. So we've created something called the Whisky Fractions Playbook. It's about a 40-page PDF which explains all these concepts in detail and a lot of the terms that you should know as a whiskey investor. So when you click on this, the playbook will open up. When you click on this details of the masterclass, which is right now going on, you'll come to that for future batches. Click on this, you will see the investing news. And then you will see LinkedIn group. So I strongly recommend that for Whisky Fractions, we've created a dedicated LinkedIn group. So I would strongly recommend that you should join that. So let me quickly share the link in the chat. Okay. So I put the link in here. I strongly recommend that you sign up to that particular LinkedIn group, which you can see here. Okay. Now, here you see the legal terms. So if you want to see all the detailed legal terms and conditions based on which you are using the platform, that opens up and you can go through. Then the third button is My Money. So first it can show you your assets, whatever you own on the platform. Then I want to go deeper into this, which is my income. So let's say that you are an investment advisor and you've onboarded some customers. When you log in, you will be able to see in real time how many transactions those customers of yours or clients have made. So for example, Sanya Nakpal's made a transaction or Samira's made a transaction here. And then I can see the transaction ID and it shows me how much I'm getting. So in this particular cask, every time a transaction happens and your client does it, a total transaction fee of $1 is charged and you get 7 cents from that. So if 1,000 transactions happen, you get 7 cents multiplied by 1,000. So as long as your client does transactions even years later, you will always continue to get the commission on that. So there we are kind of trying to follow the model the way the insurance world works. Once you get a client to the insurance company, every time the client pays premium, as an agent, you continue to get your share, even 20 years later. Same is the case here. You onboard your client once, and then every time they do a transaction, you get your share. Now it says here you are advising 3 clients. So if I click here, it'll show me the list of my clients. And then it's very easy for me to connect with them and help them to make more investments. So that was the advisory. Then we have another opportunity for you to make money. Let's take an example. Let's say you live in Scotland and you help us to partner with distilleries and you are managing a cask for us, which means you will make sure you will go once in a while to that distillery or wherever the cask is stored, make sure everything is properly there, insurance is in place, storage is properly done, regauging, refilling, all those activities are regularly happening. So then we consider you as a cask manager. As a cask manager, every time there is a transaction involving a cask managed by you, again you get a $7, 7 cent per transaction. So let me kind of explain how this works. So let me stop sharing my screen for some time. Okay, let me explain how this works. So let's say you are managing 10 casks for us. Every time transactions happen on those 10, you get the 7 cents. Now, suppose you have also onboarded as an advisor, you onboarded some clients. Every time they do transactions, you also get 7. So you could end up getting 14 cents per transaction. And you can manage X number of casks. You could manage 10, 20, 30, 100 of them. And the more casks you manage, obviously, the more commissions you get. I hope this part is clear. As an advisor, you get this money every time your client makes a transaction. As a cask manager, you make that money every time anybody in the world transacts in that cask fractions. So that's the difference between the two, and you could do both. Any questions? All clear? Perfect. Let me just give me a second. Okay. So you're able to see my screen. So this was the second one. So your income as a cask manager. Then you can click here to add or redeem your dollars. So you can add your dollars and you can also redeem them back into your account. All the USD transactions that you make, you click here, you'll be able to see all of them. All your whiskey transactions. So let me show you what that looks like. So I've done 3 transactions. I've bought 200, 200, 200 fractions. It shows me the details of that. So when I sell, it will then show me sell here. Right now, because I bought all, it is showing me the bought. So when I sell, there will be a red dot here. It will say sold and it will show me the details. And I can also see all the whiskey transactions that have ever happened. So over time, as more and more transactions happen, anybody and everybody in a very transparent manner can see all the transactions that have ever taken place by clicking on the all whiskey transaction. And then of course there is another link here for HYFI blockchain. I mean, it's not very relevant for today's masterclass, so I'm not going into that. But as part of, because this is part of the HYFI blockchain project, we also allow people to vote on different issues. So if you are owning HYFI tokens, you can vote. So I'll just briefly tell you. So one of the first things on which we are taking votes from our members is that should we enable lending and borrowing using whiskey casks as collateral? So let me give you an example of what this means. So as you know that banks or financial institutions, they lend money and they ask you to put a collateral, some kind of an asset against which they are going to do the lending. Now, very recently in Japan, I think in September itself, this month, a Japanese distillery secured about a $700,000 loan against the cask of their whiskey. And this is the bank, Sumitomo Finance and Leasing. They are the ones who gave this loan against the whiskey cask as a security. So what we are now contemplating and what we are asking our HYFI token members to vote on is that should we add this feature so that when you have got these whiskey fractions, should we make it easy for you to borrow and lend against cask tokens as a collateral? So if you have tokens, you can click on yes or no, or you can even skip the vote. The voting ends on 31st of October. So the number of HYFI tokens you have, your vote carries that much power. I hope this part is clear. So in fact, why don't I ask you this question just informally? Do you think allowing people to borrow and lend against whiskey fractions is a good idea? Give me a yes or a no. So if you guys think it's a good idea to lend people money, to allow this borrowing and lending against fractions, give me a yes. If you think it's not a good idea, give me a no. While I'm waiting for your answers to come in, let me take Jayanti's question. Who can become an advisor and or manager? So that's a very good question. So when it comes to advisor, Anybody could, as long as you have people who are going to look up to your advice and based on that they're going to buy and sell. So you could become an advisor. You need not be an existing investment advisor. You could be just somebody that your friends look up to when it comes to whiskey investment. The second point is that who can become a cask manager? So a cask manager needs to be somebody who's ideally working in a distillery or is living near distilleries. So let's say you live in Scotland and you know people who run distilleries, you could very easily make connections and get casks tokenized and you could manage them. So ideally, I would say the most important qualification would be the fact that you live very close to a distillery, because to manage the cask, you will have to go to where the casks are held. Now, usually that's going to be a bonded warehouse or that's going to be a distillery. So you should ideally be living close by there. I would say that is the most important qualification. So, and it's not just Scotland, although we have started with Scotch whiskey, which is from Scotland, but we are going to be tokenizing whiskey from many other countries also, including Japan and the US and other parts of the world. So that should not be any issue. I hope that answers your question. Okay. If there are no other questions, let me quickly tell you about how. So suppose, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. So now let's say you've found all this interesting. The next thing what I would advise you to do is to uh, download the playbook that I was mentioning to you about. So this is called the Whisky Fractions Playbook, and I am putting the link here in the chat. I hope all of you can click on that. So it's a PDF about 48 or 50 pages, and whatever I've discussed and a lot more things are in that. So I would strongly recommend that you should buy that. And after that, you can also take up the free exam which I was mentioning to you. Now, for that, what you're going to have to do is you have to go to a platform called Learn Tokens. But the good thing is you don't need to create an account. Your HYFI account, so for the Whisky Fractions, you log in. That same username password will also work in the Learn. So that link I have put finally. You just log in there, read the playbook. You can watch this video again. I'll be putting the link up there, and then just take the test. There are 25 objective questions, 10 minutes. You get 70%, and you can immediately download a certificate. Tejaswini's question is, what are the minimum number of tokens that, sorry, what are the minimum number of fractions you can buy? It is 200 to start with, but some people are now, once you buy the 200, some people are also listing 100, so you can consider 100 to 200 would be minimum. So you would have to log in and see minimum available. As of right now, 200 is the lowest that's available, so that's about $200 is what you need to put in. I hope that answers your question. Okay, the LinkedIn user says that they cannot see the link. So Shinam, if you can copy these links and put them in the LinkedIn, because I think, so we are using Restream, so maybe it is not sending the links to LinkedIn. So can you just on LinkedIn put these URLs, Shinam or Keshav, can you do that? Any other questions? So feel free to ask me any questions. They could be related to Whisky Fractions, they could be related to tokenization in general also. And in the meanwhile, somebody will be putting up these links for you. I'm also going to be conducting a masterclass called as the Blockchain Tokenization Masterclass. I'm going to be doing that towards the end of October. So if some of you are interested in learning about other kinds of tokenizations, that I think would be quite a useful opportunity. So Keshav, can you put this on the LinkedIn page? Currently, this session is being streamed live on LinkedIn on my personal profile. So can you put the link there? Are there any other questions? So I'll give you guys a few more minutes if you do have other questions. Uh, okay, Tejaswini wants to know, can you explain the process of lending against a security token? Okay, so that's a very good question. So Tejaswini, what I need to know from you is, are you specifically talking about Whisky Fractions or are you talking about security tokens in general? Because Whisky tokens are not security tokens. So could you clarify, are you talking in general or are you talking specific to Whisky? While I'm waiting for her answer, if anybody else also has questions, please feel free to post them. Tejaswini, I hope my question made sense. Otherwise, I'll anyway explain both ways. So, how it would work for Whisky Fractions is that once you decide to lend money, so let's say you own 200 fractions, but you don't want to sell them because you think that the value is going to go up. So, what you would do is you would enter into a DeFi transaction, decentralized finance transaction, and the person lending you the money would block those tokens of yours. 200 tokens are blocked. They're not going to that person, but they're locked. So you also cannot sell them, and the person lending you the money also cannot sell. And the money hits your account. And then later, when the transaction is reversed and you paid back the interest, the reverse transaction would happen, and then your tokens would be opened up for you. So that's fairly simple. I hope that was clear. But like I told you that we've not gone live with that feature. Right now we are at the voting stage. So till 31st October, we are open to voting. Once the HYFI token holders vote, and then we do decide to go ahead with this feature, then you will be able to do it, and we'll make sure it's very simple. So as you realize that even though we are technically a Web3 project, we're not trying to make you use complicated wallets like say a MetaMask. We're making it very simple. So this should be as easy as it is to use say WhatsApp, or as easy it is to use something like a Paytm. So we're keeping it very simple. If you lose your password, don't worry, you don't lose your money. You can just reset it, your email address is in place. And when you're doing all these transactions, we are only using, everything is happening through banks. Of course, you're free to use crypto, but you don't have to worry about the typical kind of risks that are there when you talk about crypto transactions. So these are not really cryptocurrencies. These are what we call as the asset backed tokens. So there is an actual asset which is backing these tokens. And one of the next sessions I'm also going to do is I'm going to talk about the taxation elements. So of course, I won't be able to cover the tax of all countries, but I'll talk about the Indian taxation law and how these kind of whiskey fractions really fit into that. But other than that, I hope it's all very clear what I'm trying to explain. Are there any other questions? So I hope a lot of you do take up the test and you do clear that, and you can download the certificate. And it'll help you to basically test your knowledge. So before you advise anyone else, I would strongly recommend that you should clear that test so that you know your knowledge is pretty updated on this field. And now I'll look forward, if any of you want to become investor advisors or cask managers, do get in touch with us. If some of you want to tokenize your own cask, again, feel free to get in touch with us. uh, Tejaswini has a question. Do you see tokenization possibilities in mobility? Unfortunately, Tejaswini, I did not understand the question. What do you mean by mobility? Generally speaking, I'm extremely bullish on tokenization, but there's some very basic concepts that we need to keep in mind, that when it comes to tokenization, the tech is not so critical, the legal is very critical. So you have to make sure that the rights of the token holder are protected. So there need to be proper legal documents and agreements. See, in Bitcoin, the mere act of holding it in your wallet is giving you ownership. But when you talk about assets, the asset is physically somewhere else. What you are getting is a digital twin of that asset. So that is where the legal documents have to come in. That's the most important thing to remember when it comes to tokenization. So Tejaswini, I'll wait for you to clarify what you mean by mobility. And one last thing I wanted to share with all of you is that if you would like to keep getting more updates on whiskey and other things from HYFI, we've just set up the channel. So WhatsApp has come out with this new feature called as the channels, which basically means nobody can see your WhatsApp number when you follow someone. Otherwise, if you're part of a group, everybody can see your number. So if you're worried about your privacy, I would strongly recommend to join the channel so nobody else can see who you are. Keshav, if you can take this link and post it on LinkedIn also, can then people can just start following HYFI on that. Tejaswini has put in the answer. Let me just quickly take that. Her question is electrification, carbon credits on chain. Yeah, that's a very good question. And in fact, That is something HYFI blockchain is working on. We are working on carbon credit tokenization. And in fact, next week or the week after that, I'm going to be doing another dedicated session going deeper into tokenization of carbon credits. So we are currently in talks with somebody, with a very large client who wants to tokenize carbon credits. I cannot disclose any details at this stage, but as soon as that project is finalized, I will be doing another session where I will talk about it in great depth. And I think carbon credits is a very, very useful case for tokenization on the blockchain. I have done a session on that in the past, so you can just go through one of my earlier videos on that. So if you just go to my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see there's a playlist called Let's Talk Tokenization. Those are the sessions I do every Friday like today. So there, one of the sessions is about carbon credits. Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no other questions, it was great speaking to all of you. I hope all of you do take the exam and get your certifications, and keep connected. And I'll see you guys next Friday, same time, that's 3 p.m. India time. Bye bye.